The road was almost empty. An old car slowly drove down the highway. Inside were Catherine, Dorothy, and Mary, 3 black women. Suddenly the car broke down. The engine stopped working. They had no choice but to pull over. The sun was blazing. The 3 women stood quietly in their work clothes. They watched cars speed past them. No one complained. No one panicked. They simply waited. A white police officer pulled over. He came over to question them. His eyes were full of suspicion. Back then, black people were often treated as suspects, even if they had done nothing wrong. Catherine calmly explained the situation. They weren't travelers. They worked at NASA. The officer looked at their ID badges. He froze for a second. The NASA logo was right there. Most people believed NASA was only for white men. It was where the country's best engineers worked. No one expected black women to be there. At that time, they faced barriers from every direction, because of their race, because of their gender, and because of their social status. Slavery had already ended, but segregation was still everywhere. It showed up in everyday life. The laws said everyone was equal. Reality was very different. NASA looked modern, but prejudice still existed inside. The 3 women all worked in the West area. That was where the computing department was. Many black women worked there. They spent every day doing calculations. They handled huge amounts of flight data. Their work supported every space mission, but almost nobody noticed them. Nobody remembered their names. Other people received the credit. White workers could take it easy. Some even slacked off. But these women couldn't make a single mistake. Every number had to be perfect. White employees had better offices. They had better equipment too. The 3 women worked in an old crowded building. Their workspace was much worse. They had to be careful all the time. Catherine was the best mathematician on the team. She had an amazing talent for numbers. She solved difficult formulas with ease. Complex flight calculations came naturally to her. Other people needed days. She figured them out much faster. She showed her talent at a young age, but she never got the chance she deserved. She stayed in the West area, doing the same basic calculations every day. Dorothy was the leader of the group. She was experienced, calm, and organized. She looked after the whole team. She made sure everyone stayed on track. Even though she managed the department, she was never officially promoted. She never received the title or the salary. Management kept giving her more work, but never gave her the credit. Mary dreamed of becoming an engineer. She had a sharp eye. She noticed problems quickly. She was always thinking of better solutions. Her biggest goal was becoming an engineer. But back then, black women weren't even allowed into engineering schools. Becoming an engineer seemed impossible. Each woman had her own strength. Each of them worked hard. But they all faced the same problem. Their skills were enough. Their identity wasn't. They worked hard every day, quietly doing their jobs. They became an important part of NASA, but very few people knew who they were. Then everything changed. The space race became more intense. The Soviet Union sent the first human into space. The whole world was shocked. The United States rushed to catch up. NASA pushed the Mercury program forward. More and more calculations were needed. The workload kept growing. The white computing team struggled to keep up. Mistakes became more common. The core team needed help. During a staff transfer, Catherine stood out because of her incredible math skills. She was assigned to the Space Task Group, NASA's most important research team. It was the first time a black woman entered the department. It should have been a huge opportunity. Instead, it brought even more challenges. On her first day, someone thought she was the janitor. Everyone stared at her. Her supervisor stayed cold toward her. He only gave her simple calculations. There wasn't even a restroom for black women. Whenever she needed one, she had to carry her papers and run half a mile back to the West area. She made that trip over and over, every single day. Later, she got a drink in the break room. Everyone turned to look at her, as if she didn't belong there. Her supervisor, Harrison, never believed in her abilities. He thought a black woman couldn't handle important work, so he handed her the hardest calculations, and watched everything she did. No one respected her work. Everyone assumed she was only there temporarily. They believed she'd be replaced at any time. Nobody expected her to stay. Even with all that pressure, Catherine never gave up. She put all her energy into the work. The Mercury program depended on one thing: accurate trajectory calculations. It was the hardest part of the mission. Every launch angle mattered. Every flight path mattered. Every landing point mattered. One tiny mistake could ruin the entire mission. The team checked the numbers again and again, but the results were still off. The whole project came to a stop. Just when everyone ran out of ideas, Catherine took over all the calculations. Catherine started checking all the data again. She went through every number carefully. For the missing information, she found her own way to solve it. She worked for days and nights. She rebuilt the entire calculation process. She checked every part of the flight path and calculated everything from the beginning. Finally, she completed the full set of data. When the new results appeared in front of everyone, the whole office became silent. No one could believe it. The black woman they had ignored had solved the problem the entire team couldn't fix. She found the mistakes, she corrected the calculations, and she helped the mission move forward again. Even after proving her ability, the prejudice didn't disappear. Harrison still struggled to accept her. Her coworkers still kept their distance. They still refused to see her as part of the team. Every day at work, white employees could get water whenever they wanted. They could use the restroom anytime. They could take breaks freely. But Catherine had to run far away. Just to use a restroom she was allowed to enter. She made the trip again and again. In the summer heat, she wore her work clothes. She walked quickly across the campus. Each time she returned, she was covered in sweat. But her supervisor only saw her as wasting time. One day, Catherine finally spoke about what she had been facing. She explained everything she had experienced, the unfair rules, the daily struggles, and the barriers she had to overcome. The room became completely quiet. Everyone listened. For the first time, they saw what she went through every day. Harrison finally started looking at her differently. He realized skill had nothing to do with skin color, and talent had nothing to do with gender. After that, he made a surprising decision. He removed the sign from the colored women's restroom. The segregation rules inside the department began to disappear. He allowed Catherine to join important meetings. He gave her access to important information, and he let her work inside the main office. Catherine finally became part of the core team. She became the first black woman mathematician to work directly with NASA's most important missions. While Catherine was breaking barriers, Dorothy was already preparing for the future. She noticed computers were developing quickly. IBM's large computers arrived at NASA. They could handle huge amounts of calculations and work much faster than humans. Most people continued doing things the old way. They repeated the same tasks every day. But Dorothy saw the coming changes. She understood. Computers would soon replace many human calculators. The hundreds of black women in the West area could lose their jobs if they didn't learn new skills. Dorothy refused to let that happen. She didn't want to stay a temporary supervisor forever, so she made a decision. She would learn computer programming and bring her entire team into the future. But at that time, learning new technology was extremely difficult. NASA's programming books were only available to white employees. Black workers were not allowed to borrow them. She had no teacher, no training, and no support. So Dorothy found her own way. She secretly borrowed programming books and taught herself everything from the beginning. She practiced every day, learning a completely new system. Later, management discovered that Dorothy already knew how to operate the computers and write programs. They wanted to offer her a new position, but Dorothy did not accept right away. She made one request. She wanted her entire team to move with her. She didn't want success only for herself. She wanted everyone to have a future. In the end, management agreed. The whole team moved into the new department. Dorothy changed the future of her coworkers. She earned the position she had always deserved. At the same time, Mary received a new opportunity. Because of her engineering talent, she joined the wind tunnel project. She began working on spacecraft testing. Mary quickly discovered problems in the design. She suggested better solutions and helped improve the project. Her supervisor recognized her ability, but becoming a real engineer required one more step. She needed special education and training, but the school only accepted white students. Mary refused to give up. She decided to fight for the chance to study. She took her case to court. She asked for permission to attend the school. Back then, almost nobody dared to challenge the system, but Mary stayed determined. She stood before the judge. She explained why she deserved the opportunity. She didn't shout. She didn't give up. She simply showed that she had earned the right to learn. In the end, the judge approved her request. Mary entered the school, completed her courses, and became NASA's first black female aerospace engineer. The three women each found their own way forward. Each broke through their own barriers. In 1962, the Mercury program entered its final stage. John Glenn prepared for his orbital mission. The mission was extremely important. The whole country was watching. The rocket launch, the flight path, and the return to Earth all depended on accurate calculations. Before the launch, the IBM computer completed the final calculations, but many people were still unsure. At that time, computer technology was not fully trusted yet. A small mistake in the numbers could put the entire mission at risk. John Glenn was careful. He trusted human calculations more than a machine, so the final data was given to Catherine for another review. The countdown had already started. The mission was about to begin. Catherine took on the final calculation check. She reviewed every piece of data, one number at a time. The orbital information was complicated. The amount of work was enormous, but she stayed focused. She checked every detail and found small errors in the computer's results. She quickly recalculated everything. She corrected the return path and adjusted the important flight data. The new numbers were sent to the mission team. All preparations were finally complete. The rocket launched successfully. The spacecraft entered orbit. John Glenn began his journey around Earth. The mission continued exactly as planned. When it was time to return, the spacecraft followed Catherine's calculations and landed safely back on Earth. The mission was a complete success. The United States achieved a major breakthrough in space exploration. The whole country celebrated. The media reported the success everywhere. People praised the astronaut. They praised the engineers. They praised the new computer technology. But very few people knew that Catherine helped make the mission possible. Almost nobody mentioned the contributions of Dorothy and Mary.